and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick, from the City of Hampton's Communications and Marketing Department, and we have a special guest with us today. It's Vice Mayor George Wallace. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I call you George?
Absolutely.
All right. We're talking to all the city council members right now, and I want to start with your background, where you grew up and sort of how you got to where you are today. That's a big void there.
Most people are surprised to learn that I was born and raised in Williamsburg, and I used to carry the Daily Press route.
Did
up
you?
and down Duke of Gloucester Street, so that's my original hometown. We moved to Hampton in the late 60s, and I was working in Norfolk at the time, and then subsequently got employed here in Hampton.
But you, how did you get into public service? Because you were a professional administrator in a city before you got to the council role. What made you want to do that?
I started my public service career in Norfolk, got hired when Wendell White was selected as the city manager of Hampton, reorganized the city management structure and hired 3 assistants. And I was the only assistant from outside of the confines of the city at that time to be employed. And so my first foray was supervising 13 of the toughest department in my mind that the city operates: police, fire, juvenile probation, coliseum, social services, parks and recreation, all the tough stuff.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, but back me up. You went to college, you were in the Army. I mean, what made you want to help run city services?
Well, the story to tell, my degree is in accounting, and I was working with an accounting firm and was doing an audit on an undertaker's establishment. Mm-hmm. And as luck would have it, I had to do the audit that evening, and while I was there, was just I and one of the proprietors. And he said, well, I'm going out to the store and get a sandwich, but I'm going to leave you here. Don't be surprised, because the bodies emit air, and sometimes you'll hear grunts, so don't be concerned about it. So I was sitting there doing my audit and looking out into the foyer where the bodies were, and in their caskets, waiting to be viewed. And I heard a grunt, and it didn't bother me. And then this guy sat up in the casket, and it got my attention. And what had happened, I learned later, I ran out of the building.
Yeah.
What I learned later was that this individual had been killed in an accident, and he had sat in a crushed position in his car, or upright position in his car, for an extended period of time before they were able to retrieve him.
Oh no.
The mortuary people forgot to strap him down, and the muscles contracted and he sat up. That told me, said, George, you need to do something else. And I said, I'm going to get out of this accounting business, and I went into public service after that.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I've never heard that story. That's wonderful. So in your career in Hampton, you managed some of the toughest departments. You became city manager. Why Hampton? Why did you stick around for so long?
My wife and I fell in love with this community when we moved here. There was just something different about the people. My first experiences with the public administrator or a public elected leader was with Ann Kilgore, who was the mayor at that time. She's a very vibrant lady, very articulate lady, and she called the staff family. And that kind of resonated with me. And then I started working with the managers in various capacities. And their philosophy was, we're going to tell you what we want you to do. We're going to allow you to have as much room as you possibly can to do it. And if you have a mistake, it's not going to be fatal. But we want you to be creative. And that environment over the years has just resonated with me. And then the people, and the staff, and the things that we do, and the opportunities and challenges were just too enticing to leave.
That's wonderful. One of the things, I work in City Hall now, it's still all new to me, but that people always say is when you were city manager, you, first of all, took the stairs, which you still do. It absolutely blows my mind. I can do like maybe 3-4 flights, and then I stop and have to catch my breath. But that you always stop to talk to people, wherever you were in the building, knew their names, talked to them, engaged personally with your staff.
That was kind of my mantra. As I indicated, the idea was to allow your people to be as creative and get things done and get out of their way. Tell them what the rules and boundaries are. As long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, fine, have at it, and get things done. I like to engage with people. I like to talk with people, and our individual family of staff are just extraordinary people. And we've been, over the years, been able to do so much with so much less by virtue of the talent and the dedication of the folks. So that resonates with me. And by the way, there's 155 steps from the first floor to the 8th floor.
Really?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to work my way up. I swear, one of these days I will be able to do it.
Okay.
So you left, and it was not a particularly pleasant time, but you came back on council. What made you want to do that? You didn't like get all discouraged and say, I'm out of here.
I didn't like the note that I left and the cloud that I left under. There were some allegations that subsequently got cleared up. And then I started to find out what else am I going to do with my life. And I started a small consulting business. I had a couple of jobs in other states in terms of doing some things. And my idea was to create and get some of these talented people as they retired, and created an extraordinary good consulting business.
Oh my gosh, what a good idea.
People kept asking me and telling me, George, we need you, come back, run for council, you can make a contribution. So I reconciled that within myself, and I committed to doing that. And my reason for coming back was not for retribution or retaliation against anybody. I campaigned on the adage about, allow me to use the experience that you've given me and paid me handsomely for 30 years to come back and continue to serve the community. And they did. I ran, I got selected and elected.
Right, rather overwhelmingly, if I remember correctly.
I led the ballot.
So how is it now? Your role is very different now in terms of, I mean, as a city manager, you have a seat at the table, but you don't really have a vote. And now you have a vote, and you've been elected by your peers as vice mayor. How is your role different, and what do you enjoy about it?
Well, my former management peer says, George, you're crazy. What happened to you? Do you have post-traumatic syndrome or something? I said, no, guys, it's something I wanted to do. The community asked me to come and serve, and I committed to serve and use the talent that they've allowed me to acquire over the years to make our community better. I think by virtue of that particular fact, I bring a unique perspective to the table in regards to viewing and looking at situations. And I am very, very sensitive to the fact that I'm not a manager, and not to get into the management realm, but to be an elected official and use my political mandate to do what needs to be done to try to make our community healthy. So that's kind of my modus operandi, that's kind of my sphere of influence, that's where my parameters are, and that's what I try to do.
Okay, so speaking of making the community healthier, what would you say are your personal, maybe not the most important things, but the personal issues or efforts that you want to direct your attention to over the next couple years?
Well, what I'm about to say is a minor situation, but an important one for me. I was able to get our council to buy into developing a minority development business program as an adjunct to our economic development arm. And that's been underway now for 5 years, and we're just getting that up to where we want it to be in terms of the opportunities that we offer. And we're going to a second tier of that. Many of the communities here in Hampton Roads are trying to replicate what we've already done, because like in many areas, we were one of the first ones out of the block in terms of doing this particular situation. The other thing is, we have some tremendous opportunities in terms of what we can do in the Coliseum Central area in terms of expanding and enhancing that. There's a corollary that people don't realize that there's a corollary between our ability to generate sales tax and the taxes that we have to pay on real estate. And when we have very, very healthy sales tax revenues, we have opportunities to reduce the cost of the individual homeowner in terms of the home property tax that they have to pay. So one of the things I wanted to continue that particular impetus, I wanted to do something in terms of the housing stock. I have a interest in getting additional high-valued housing in our communities, not because you're elitist, but there are other kinds of opportunities that particular housing stock brings to you in terms of the people that it brings to the table, the assets that they bring to your community, and then the perception as how your community is viewed from retailers and outlet people, and in terms of where you fit in the realm of the region. So that has been kind of a priority of mine. And so those are some of the things that pop up in challenges that I see right immediately.
I think that people don't understand that. Sometimes they'll say, oh, you pay too much attention to Coliseum Central, what about the rest of the city? And they don't realize, well, I've seen all those studies, and what a retailer looks for is the number of people and the income that they have in the 1 mile, 5 mile kind of radius. And then the other thing is, a high dollar house is going to pay potentially twice as much in real estate taxes and use the same amount of services, same number of kids in school, same number of fire calls, whatever you consider city services. And so it is, and it's also just changing the mix that Hampton has historically had a number of older houses, and some older houses are being reinvested and kept up quite well, some of them not so much. And so you have this range where people can live in our community and find the kind of house they want if we reinvest in some of those places.
Yeah, I have two responses to that. Our sister city has the shipyard and the regional waterworks. Mm-hmm. So those are two prime assets and revenue generators for them. Because of that, we didn't have those particular assets. We've always had to work smarter and better in terms of staying competitive with them. In addition to that, I've sometimes kind of facetiously, but at the same time with some validity, called Coliseum Central our shipyard, in terms of it being a revenue generator for us. Mm-hmm. We have several kinds of economic development objectives in terms of what we do. Some are for revenue generation, others are for job creation in terms of the quality and types of jobs. The investments that we make on Magruder Boulevard in the NASA-related activities and the research that we are doing there, those are job-related economic development entities in terms of the quality of the jobs, what it does for the individuals that there, and the image that it paints for our community in terms of having a wide variety of activity and a wide variety of opportunities for people and mix. The challenge for us in the short term in terms of this new millennium is to help these young people or attract young people 25 to 45 in our community, and they're looking for a different context of an environment in terms of urban environments. They're not necessarily looking for the yard and that kind of stuff, but they want short walking distances, they want challenging opportunities, they want entertainment, and all the technological assets that they're accustomed to within a short period of, or a small range of distance. So we need to create that environment in order to sustain our long-term development and our long-term population growth.
All right, that makes a whole lot of sense. What kind of legacy would you like to leave, or what would you like people to look back and say, this is what George Wallace contributed to Hampton? And I know you've contributed a lot, but in terms of lasting or in terms of the priorities for you personally?
I would like for him to say he was a good person, he loved the community, and he did what he could possibly do to make it the best that it could possibly be, and to live up to our creed of making Hampton the most livable city in Virginia.
That's, you're already there, George. You got to keep going. Find something bigger. I mean, you've done a lot already.
Well, to posture us in a position where 50 years from now, the people that are sitting in my seat as leaders and administrators and legislators will say, those guys made the right decisions, and they're making our current job easier because of the tough decisions that they made previously.
That, I think, is one of the hard things for people sometimes, is the tough decisions and the looking 2 years, 5 years, 10 years out. Especially when you're in this economic recession that we're in now, it's very hard to think beyond how can we fund this budget for the next year. But to look out and think of making those long-term steps that keep Hampton where it is or move Hampton forward. Is that hard for you?
Not for me, but for many people who are like me, they think in terms of what the next election is going to be and how they can posture themselves to be the next election, and that becomes their modus operandi, that becomes their focus. Fortunately for me, and I guess I'm blessed in the context that I don't need that in terms of me being satisfied with who I am and what I've accomplished. So consequently, I'm focus on the long term in terms of what legacy in the context can I leave in terms of making our environment better for the individuals that come behind me and more desirable for the individuals that come behind me. I don't know necessarily whether my grandsons are going to come to Hampton to live, but he loves to come to see his grandmom and granddad right now.
That's good.
And the things that we do, the Air and Space Museum and the Air Power Park across the street and those kinds of things. So he's fascinated with the community now. I just wanted to have some good job opportunities in the environment so that, granddad, I think I'm going to move here and stay here permanently.
That sounds like a wonderful goal and a wonderful challenge. I think about that with my kids sometimes. So thank you. Thank you for coming by today, and thank you for what you do for Hampton.
And thank you for having me, and the pleasure is mine.
Thanks.
Okay.
And thank you for watching this episode of Round Robin.